Good afternoon, my friends, and welcome back. Once again, I've come to bring you great tidings of joy and happiness. And the question, the big question, which is probably right in the title. And I did make a video about this a few years ago. I can't say the title out loud for the first, 30 seconds or something? Isn't that how YouTube works now? If you say something within the first 30 seconds that's a bad word, it gets pushed to the bottom and demonetized. Honestly, I usually don't monetize, but I might as well start because it's just the way YouTube is now. They put ads on your channel even if you don't want to. But that brings me to the 30-second mark, and the big question is, why should I give a shit? This question, I want to make it very clear that I'm only using this in a very specific context. A lot of younger people today, I've found, take a very nihilistic attitude towards life. And when they say, why should I give a shit? To them it means everything. From why should I work? Why should I have a relationship? Why should I have kids? Why should I do anything in this life? No, that's some fucking self-righteous bullshit that you need to get over and grow the fuck up. But there is a point where you ask yourself, okay, so I realize that, this isn't, and I don't mean that to say that you should choose to have kids or you should get married. I'm saying that if you abandon all responsibilities in life, you're missing the point of life. Because every lesson that I've learned in my life has been buckle down and do the fucking work. And you know what? A lot of the time I don't do the work. It doesn't mean that I haven't heard the message. It doesn't mean that I don't feel it and know what it means to be a human. It's not working for someone else in the sense of going and working a 40-hour work week. That's some bullshit. But actually putting in the time and effort to do something, to bring forth something in your life that you feel proud of. This could be raising kids, or it could just be working a job consistently. For some people, they're artists and they want to create some magnificent piece. For everybody it's unique and it's different. But to stick to the point of why should I give a shit, the reason I mention all these other things is because I give a lot of a shit about my family, about my friends, my relationships, my connections, even with you, the strangers on YouTube. Like, these things do matter to me because they're part of my life. What I'm asking is, why should I give a shit about other people's problems and what's going on in the rest of the world? And to what degree should we actually care about these things? And this isn't something that just popped into my head. This is something I think about all the time. Like, every so often, every few months, I go through this kind of existential musing about what it means to give a damn about the world. How much should I care about the suffering of others? Because I do. I care immensely. I caught myself watching a couple of dog rescue videos, not the fake ones that are set up, but a couple of real ones the other day, and this kayaker finding a dog stuck in the mud, and I found myself in tears. And then I was reading the comments, and somebody's like, oh, you got this 50-year-old man in tears. And I was like, that's what I was going to say. But the thing is that we have hearts. We care. But I find myself caring about the suffering of other creatures, whether they're animals, humans. Of course, humans, a lot of people would say, are the priority, but I feel like humans are innovative enough to get themselves out of a lot of situations and choose not to, whereas animals are just kind of stuck in their situation. So you see a dog stuck under a log in the mud, you're going to feel bad for the dog. And when you see it, saved and rescued, that's an awesome thing, right? Maybe for some people it doesn't move them at all, but it moves me immensely because I know the bond of a dog and a master. I know the connection between humans, where every human life affects so many others around them. So, for example, even when something happens in a place that I'm not part of and I know nothing about, like the floods in Texas, for example, the other day, it's just horrendous. I mean, that kind of dates the video here, but yeah, it was a big flood. So far it's like at least 100 are dead as far as I can see. I mean, they're talking about the missing, but we know what that means. It's a recovery, not a rescue. But I'm like, here are human beings, including a girls' summer camp, which was completely wiped out, and all these people that are missing and dead. Yes, it was probably, they could have done a better job notifying people, but was it preventable? No. It's nature. Nature does what nature does, right? But, I mean, it really, my first thought was these poor fucking people, that really sucks. But would I dare say something like, maybe they should dig their rivers out better and dredge their rivers better so they don't have these problems? But that's exactly what people in Texas said about California when the wildfires happened. And this whole idea of raking the forest. And I was just mind blown by the difference in the way people handle disasters. Like, one group is just like, ha, you caused your own natural disaster, too bad, fuck you. And, the people with hearts are like, well, it sucks whenever anybody gets hurt, because if you care about your country, you care about your neighbors, you care about everyone. It doesn't matter who it is. Shit, I don't revel in and gain joy in the failure of other human beings because I care about people. But then I try to stop myself sometimes because I'm like, how much energy can I put into focusing on other people's problems? But we all do it. We want to know what's going on. It's not the gossip so much as like, holy shit, this world is falling apart, and wanting to watch it from a front row seat. So it brings me to the question of how much should I give a shit, which makes me ask myself, what are the important things to pay attention to? What really matters? And what is just distraction? I was just having actually a text thread with a couple of my friends earlier, and I sent a picture of a t-shirt that I'd taken a picture of in the window. I'd posted it, I think, on my channel too. It says Orwell was an optimist. And my buddy mentioned that he said, why are y'all doom and gloom, basically? And it got me thinking about how difficult it is to explain to people that being a realist isn't doom and gloom, it's just realism. But being a realist today is doom and gloom. I was trying to explain, I started off explaining how the Patriot Act is where it all began, but really it began long before that in Vietnam when they made, all the drugs were made illegal to try to stop the hippies from protesting. I mean, if you want to break it down, the US government does not like dissent. Freedom of speech is a pain in the ass for these people. And it always has been. And they've tried to clamp down by calling it hate speech, terrorism, whatever you want to call it. In fact, the UK just passed a law banning the Palestinian action. And I was like, wow, nobody's saying a damn thing about a genocide, but they're, more than willing to arrest people for sitting peacefully with signs. Even though some people are violent, that's not the point. We focus on the parts that we want to see. So, how much should I give a shit about politics or what's going on in my nation, even if my vote doesn't really matter in the long run? But also, how much should I care about the world issues? Maybe even less. I'm paying attention to what's going on around me, but trying not to get sucked into it. And as a conscientious, aware observer of world events, who considers myself somewhat intelligent enough to see through bullshit, I still get taken. I still get fooled by shit I see. Sometimes I'm like, wow, imagine every human being having at least one opinion they hold being wrong because they have a lack of information about that topic. And it's really a scary proposition when you consider the internet gives us access to anything we could possibly want, but we have to sort through the bullshit to get there. I can't say how the average person might do, quote, research, this old joke of do your own research, it's pretty meaningless today. I've found that most people listen to what their podcasts or their politicians tell them and don't do any further research. And that's, I guess we're all a bit guilty of that. But whenever I'm curious about something, I actually look up the numbers, and then I re-look up the numbers under a different source and try to get the best assessment I can. I mean, if you're going to Google and looking at the first search, you're going to get biased results. That's just how it works. You've got to actually look at government documents, read boring bills, look into actual laws and issues. If you really are concerned with them, you have to understand them. And I feel like that's where we're at. Most people want to be concerned with everything around them, but are too lazy to actually look into what it is and what it really means. And because of this, we end up with companies like Palantir, which half of Americans probably don't even know who they are right now. If you're one of those Americans, I would highly urge you to go do the research and look it up. Look at what's going on right now over in, with Russia and Ukraine. It started out with, heavy warfare, tanks. Then all of a sudden, it comes down to drones. Then the drones get jammed. So what are they doing? People don't even realize they're programming these drones with AI technology to seek out their targets. So yes, as of this moment, right now, we have fully autonomous drones that can take off and use AI to seek out targets. And I want to ask you, no matter how utopian or dystopian you may be, if you can send in a robot unit through the sky to seek out a specific individual, how long do you think it's going to be until this shit just gets way out of hand? For under $1,000, people can build these. You're not talking about $1 billion jet fighter to go out and try to find some, enemy. You have a $1,000 drone that can fly in on its own into an area and seek out a target. That is creepy. It's always creeped me out, but we'll see how this all ends up. And I try to be positive. I try to remain as neutral as I can and say, hey, the world's difficult. We need technology. We need to be able to defend ourselves as human beings and as countries. But when you really get right down to it, you realize the only reason we need to protect ourselves is against people who want revenge for us lashing out and taking advantage of other people. There's no real situation in history where the U.S. has been attempted to be overtaken by some other country. It's usually people trying to protect themselves. And, hey, I've lived here my whole life. It's what I know. It's who I am. I'm an American. But it doesn't mean I have to sit by and bend over while, I'm fed a bunch of bullshit that is not what my country was founded on. The principles about, privacy and the right to, illegal search and seizure are not permitted, the Fifth Amendment. You got the First Amendment, thank God, but if that one doesn't work, you have the Second Amendment, and so on and so forth. We as Americans need to protect these things. They matter a lot. And this means even if you disagree with somebody else, even if you think, I don't care if you're the most hardcore conservative and you see a liberal being silenced for what they're saying, if you don't defend them as an American, you're not an American, okay? You're talking about the very First Amendment of the Constitution. If you are trying to silence somebody for saying something you don't like, maybe they're saying something bad about Israel, like Israel is a terrorist state. There, I said it. Israel is a terrorist state, and Zionism is the biggest threat to world peace. So, if you'd said that a year ago, you'd be labeled an anti-Semitic. But today, that's a badge of honor. People don't care anymore. Nobody cares what Israel thinks. And it's about time, because they're constantly trying to dominate the region. And we in the West are fed all this bullshit about how it's Hamas's fault, and it's always Hamas, Iran, Iraq. It's always these other countries that are the problem. But you have these belligerent rich fucks in the middle just trying to dominate and take more than their share. 1967. You go back through all the different wars and see exactly what happened back to the Al-Nakba back in 1948. It doesn't matter. I won't even argue the position of, where I stand on this, but just making the point that it doesn't matter how informed you are on a topic. You will have to face all of the garbage, criticism, and people who are completely unaware, which I was as well, until I educated myself on certain topics. And I've spent, a lot of time learning about the Middle East and the history of Israel because I wanted to be informed. And then when I have discussions with people, they have no idea what any of the terms I use mean, even though they're very basic and well known. Because I've found that most people are too fucking lazy to do any real research into anything that's important. And I know that sounds kind of harsh, but it is, and that's how I feel. I feel like if you want to have an opinion and speak up on topics, you better know what the fuck you're talking about. But nobody does. A few people do, but the ones who know the most get ridiculed the most. So it brings me back to the question, how much should I give a shit? Well, I will continue to give a shit about those I love. I will continue to give a shit about the people in my community and the people I surround myself with. But I'm not going to have any illusions that the world is perfect. We know that's not true. Definitely no illusions that my country is perfect, or the people who claim to be the representatives of this country. Because I've seen a vast decline in the average American's way of life. And while some people may say everything's fine, if everyone isn't getting along, nobody's getting along. It just hasn't reared its ugly head yet. But we'll see what happens. At any rate, I'm out. Gotta get to work. Got shit to do. Just wanted to share some thoughts. As usual, thank you. Subscribe and thumbs up and all that shit that people forget to do. And also, if you want to support the channel, check out Patreon. I have amazing things there. I really don't. I'm gonna add more shit to it. It's been a month or two since I've put some private videos, but I got a list of them. Usually I have certain videos I don't share, and then I'll put them all on Patreon at once. And then on top of that, I have a podcast called 15 Minute Free Thinking. And other than that, that's all I gotta say. I don't approve of the current system, and I don't feel I have any need to support it or pretend. So, we'll see how it does. Be well.